There are two kinds of teenagers today. One strives to rack up 30 million points on video games. The other finds it challenging to invent his own game. One depends on somebody else's imagination, the other on his own. One owns a video game machine. The other has a Commodore Vic-20 home computer. But they do have one thing in common. Someday, both will be trying to get into college.
Hi, I'm Nate, and I don't know what I'm doing. And this is the second part of the I don't know what I'm doing with the Vic-20 video series. So in the last episode, we got that Vic-20, we cleaned it up, we tested some of the stuff out, but we still had a few things left to do before it was fully functional. We have to take a look at that keyboard still and see if we can get it working 100%. We have to fix that power switch, working mostly, but I'd like to have it fully functional and not worry about it flipping off on me unexpectedly. We also still have to take a look at the rest of these cartridges that we got. Then we got to take a look at some of the stuff that we didn't look at last week that I got. Particularly, we're going to take a look at the different data set options, make sure those work, see if there's any repairs we have to make to these. And if we get that working, we can also take a look at some vintage software. So we'll see what my personality type is. I have some suspicions, but making a video like this and putting it on YouTube for you all to see is gotta mean I'm bent in one way or another. As well, maybe I'll have learned something. So we'll see what my IQ is at the end of this. I have my guesses that this is not very accurate, but we'll see. So, with all that said, let's dive in and take a look at all these different components that we still have to do, finish off those last bits and pieces that we wanted from the last episode, and then go ahead and check out some of this new stuff. So after the last episode, I went and did a little research on what could be going wrong with the keyboard and what may be working fine. Saw that some people said that you can have good luck sometimes just by cleaning the bottom of the plungers with alcohol. So I'm going to note down here the keys that seem to be working fine and the keys that are having a little bit of problem, maybe need a little bit extra push to get them working. The only drawback here is that I have a lot of screwing and unscrewing to do constantly. So first we'll try just a couple of these, because there's a lot, and see how it works. Well, on the ones I tested there, it looked like it actually worked pretty good, so let's unscrew this whole thing again and try the next bit. I'm going to focus on the ones that were having problems, but we did a general clean of the whole thing. Okay, mostly working now, but a couple are still having a little problem, so I'm going to try the big guns now. So we're going to attempt to use this conductive paint used for remote controls on these and see how it does. And perfect. Those ones seem to be working excellently now. There's a little question on how long this may actually last, so we may have to try something else again in the future. So now let's deal with that power switch. What I read online was that you could actually disassemble the power switch, clean out the inside, add a little grease back to it, and then resolder it back onto the board. Now, I don't think I would recommend this purely from the amount of desoldering you have to do. The board itself is soldered pretty well to the shield. Then just trying to get the switch out of the Vic was really kind of a hassle. Never mind the actual hassle of when you try to take this thing apart. These pieces were pretty much built to be replaced, not taken apart and put back together. Plus you got all the little rockers, the little components, the parts that attach to the switch, cleaning it out, trying to put it all back together. It was not exactly easy or straightforward, and plus I really kind of started pressing my luck with my skill level here. And when I went to put it all back together, got a little too much force on it. And it just kind of crumbled in my fingers. So luckily, was able to pull a power switch off another board and poorly soldered it back on, but it seems to be working fine now. Alright, now that we got all that boring stuff out of the way, let's play around with some of these cartridge expansions. Okay, so we popped in the super expander there with the 3K, and we definitely have 3K more. Let's see what the 8K gives us. I'd be surprised if it didn't give us 8K more. Gotta love those Vic-20 cartridge slots. Yeah, there we go. Massive, almost 12K now. Let's try the 16K. There we go. Got it in. Yeah, look at that. Almost 20K. We can really do some massive programs now. But, thinking about that, 20K is not a whole lot. So, how could I get more memory available for my programs that I want to write on this system? Yeah, I was wondering how I might be able to expand the Vic-20 beyond just a 16 kilobyte cartridge using vintage hardware. Interesting thing is, there were solutions to this back in the time that the Vic-20 was released. One of those solutions is actually this cartridge port expander right here by HESWare. HESWare is actually an interesting company. I'd like to learn a little bit more about it. Let's see if there's any info we can find out about it online.
When you take your Commodore computer and add HESWare brand software, you've got excitement. Like Benji's Space Rescue. You and Benji search the solar system, defend against attacking aliens, and rescue our scientists from fearsome robots. Or Grid Runners, with 31 challenging levels, plus a $5 off coupon good on the full spectrum of HESWare. Games, graphics, word processing, electronic accounting. You want the best for your Commodore computer. You want HESWare. Available wherever fine computer software is sold.
So while we get this thing cleaned up, let's take a look at what HESWare actually did. So HESWare was started by J. Balakrishnan in his own apartment, where he wrote, supported, and distributed the software himself. Now eventually he got tired of taking calls at like 3 in the morning for all this software, so he found some investors, including people like Microsoft. So they moved the operation up to Brisbane, California, where they expanded quite rapidly and started publishing software and producing hardware, publishing people like Jeff Minter. Eventually, they also started licensing and doing deals with celebrities like Paul McCartney, and eventually signed on Leonard Nimoy as one of their spokesmen. He did a lot of stuff, including shilling this Compute device, which was some kind of galvanic skin response thing in software. They were pretty successful overall, though eventually they got caught up in the whole market crash like a lot of people did during that time period. Now, if you want to hear a much more detailed account from this from Jay himself, take a listen to the Antic podcast linked below and linked here. So let's go ahead and try and plug this thing in. So it shouldn't be that hard, right? It's just like a cartridge, just put it back in the slot. Well, yeah, it's a little bit harder than it would seem. The weird thing is the cartridge part is not the same width as a Vic-20 cartridge, so trying to get aligned is actually kind of a problem. Took me more than a few tries, and I actually had to lift up the Vic like this to get it in, and big thumbs down from me as far as the cartridge connection part works. So now let's throw in the memory cartridges we have. In the back there you see those buttons and the red button. Those are actually port selectors and a reset button. So we'll throw a few of these in here and see what we got. And we turn it on, and we're not actually seeing anything more than what the 16K cartridge. So time to jump online and see what I did wrong. Turns out the Vic has 4 blocks where the memory can go, and the memory has to be in one of those sequential blocks in order for BASIC to see it. And what was happening was that my 8K and my 16K were actually conflicting with each other. Looking at the manual, it actually had some ways to assign the different 8K blocks to different blocks. Now, there's interesting things that happen with the Vic-20 memory map when these cartridges are installed, but we'll check that out in a future episode. So we're gonna pull this cassette apart. Now, this is exactly pretty much how the instruction manual for this cartridge shows you how to do it. You stick a screwdriver in there and pull it apart, And here's those dip switches there, so we'll flip those into the right one. That is not the right one, by the way. It should be one over. So we'll pop this on in here, and then let's go ahead and pull all my cartridges together. We'll select the first couple banks, because I do plan on popping pretty much all the cartridges I have at the moment in there that I might use with this Vic. So a lot of extra ones in here that we're not actually going to take a look at right now. Hey, it makes a good cartridge caddy as well as a expansion setup here. And let's see what. All right, there we go. 28, 159 bytes free. Almost the max that BASIC will actually see. I think I have the Programmer's Aid one in here as well. Now you can add more that machine language programs can use, but we'll look at that later. So now it's actually my favorite part of the whole episode, which is when I actually get to test out some new stuff and clean it up and see if it's working. So I got a couple data sets, and let's check this one out and see if it's even in a functional state and what we may actually have to fix. So I'm gonna test all the buttons here, see if the belts are actually working. So far it looks like it's working pretty good, so let's throw in a sacrificial cassette and see if everything's working. And yep, looks like everything's working pretty evenly, nothing crazy as far as like wobbly speed changes or anything like that. Let's actually go and we'll run the test that's actually in the manual for the dataset, which is basically a very simple one-liner program. You then confirm that's in memory, and then try and save it to the cassette disk. So we'll get that going and press record on here. Wait a little bit of time while it actually records the program onto cassette. Then what we're going to do is we're going to clear that out of memory by creating a new program and list just to make sure that it's actually gone. And now we'll try loading it from the cassette. So it'll ask us to press play on the tape. We'll press play, of course, after we have already rewound it. It's going to look for it, and hey, found it, so it's going to get it load, and then we'll do a list and see if it comes back the way we put it in. And good news, it's all working the way we hope it would. So let's get going and clean these things up. So I had two of them, so I decided to do them one right after the other. They're an older model and a newer model. It's a little bunged up on both of them, but not too bad overall, so we should be able to make these look pretty nice. Some weird tape affixed to different places, so we're going to clean that off as well. And we'll remove all the components from the inside and try to disassemble it as much as we can so that we can wash these things off and then give them a nice retro brighting. Kind of bent this a little bit while I pull it out. Should be able to make that look okay, but look at how much yellowing this thing had and just the dirtiness of it. While I'm taking these things apart too, I figured I had this controller. Let's do the same here. Haven't actually tested this out before I took it apart, but figured what's the harm. So we'll wash these off, and now I did kind of end up messing the paint job up on the newer version of the cassette, so you'll notice it starts getting progressively worse and worse as this goes. I do have a plan there, so I just decided to strip all that paint off and do something to kind of mark it as a badge of dishonor, I guess. So we'll leave these outside. It was a nice warm day out here in sunny Burbank, California, which lets us actually work pretty good with a lower concentration solution. That's why I go with the Salon Care 20. And of course, we're gonna clean off all them cables. We're gonna replace a couple of these bands in here that looked a little bit aged, a little bit dried out, clean off all the rollers and everything, and then let's put it all back together. Hope we didn't break anything too poorly, and then test them out again. And hopefully everything's still functioning the way we expect it to at the end of all this stuff. But I do love the look of the clean components, particularly when they gets that cream white color. And give it a nice little lighting and a nice little camera move. And even though that one is totally blank now, we're going to do something with that before the episode's done. So pretty happy with the way these turned out. All right, cool. We got those joystick and the data set all set up and working and refreshed and looking great. They're working pretty great too, so I'm excited to try some more stuff with that. We got the keyboard fixed. Even though we had to go with a little bit more extreme method for a couple of the keys, that's fine. These things happen. Learned something new there. We got the memory carts all working with the multiple memory cartridges kind of maxed out, quote unquote, the Vic. There's still more stuff you can have that's addressable outside of BASIC. We'll explore that at some point. And there's interesting things that happen with the memory map when you add all this memory into it. So we'll learn a little bit more of that in a future episode. We got the power switch fixed, or, well, more likely replaced. But, you know, hey, I learned something there. Luckily, I had some spare parts lying around that I could fix it and get it working the way I want it to work. So probably for the better anyway. So now with that said, let's see what my personality and my IQ is now that I've learned all this stuff. All right, let's take this personality test. First question, how much was this at Kmart? All right, now I know I said that I was most excited about cleaning all that stuff and testing it and putting it together, but I was actually really looking forward to taking this personality test and then the IQ test. It's good we got that 8K and 16K RAM cartridge working because we're gonna need it for this. Let's take a quick look through here. I kinda hope that I end up on that very top unstable area, but remember this is not pejorative or evaluative. So there's two cassettes in here. One contains the program, so we'll load that in first. And just pop it in the Vic here and pop it in the cassette and start it running. Now it's very creatively named Personality. Okay, so now it's going to try to find it on the tape, so we'll press play and get started. Hopefully it loads, fingers crossed. Okay, found it, it's loading, so we just have to wait a little bit. 3 minutes more likely to load it up. So now let's give it a whirl and run this sucker. So first things first, put my name in, so, you know, of course I know who I am. And we'll try number 1. Now, the questions are actually saved on the second cassette, so we'll pop that in now and load these questions up and start this test and figure out who we are and what we know. So it'll take about 2¼ minutes to load these questions, and let's get started. Now we're gonna, really look and evaluate these questions because I want this to be 100% accurate inventory of my personality. All right. Oh, we got more questions to load. Okay, another 2¼ minutes. Let's get through this. Okay, we can do it. This is gonna tell us exactly who we are and what we are looking for. And another set of questions. Okay, another 2¼ minutes. All right, let's do this. Let's try this. Really think about these, and it's gonna give me an amazing result. I know. And okay, I guess I'm kind of extroverted and introverted, I suppose. Maybe personality test number 2 will tell us more. But, thinking about it, I'll have to spend at least another 10 minutes loading things. And I don't know if I really want to do that plus answer all the questions when I have that IQ test waiting for me. Now that is going to be a really exciting thing to take. So we're going to plug in the older style tape drive here, so it'll be a little bit more fun to use, and take this IQ test. Take a look at them faces though. Angry and blank. I opened up the manual, but I had really no intention of reading it. But I did notice you can keep this IQ record chart if you so choose. The language here is a little weird, particularly where it says, confirmed as having a disappointingly low IQ. Do not accuse him of being lazy or inattentive at school. Okay. So we'll load this one. It's very creatively named IQ. And just like the other one, we'll press play on tape and let it load. Loading time's about the same, 3 minutes. Now I'll give it a run. Now, much like the other one, we'll put our name in here so we can track it, I guess. And then let's put our age in my case, 43. Unfortunately, that's invalid because this is meant for a child 11 years or younger. We'll start loading the data tape, same as the other one. Questions are on the data tape. Now, I'm not going to go through the entire quiz here because it's actually really long. So there's 3 types of tests that you'll be taking here. There's this one, which is like a multiple choice one, and the questions get harder the further you go on. Then there's ones that actually require some interpretation by the parent. So the software will ask a question and the child will answer, and then the parent will actually listen to the child's answer, look up in the book, pick the answer that was closest to what the child answered, and then key in the response based off that. Then your third type of question is a pattern matching type. Now I'm going to let this play in real time while I explain this a little bit, because the graphics drawing in this program are pretty slow. So basically, there's 9 boxes, a few examples, a third row with the third box empty, and then the child would explain what should be in there. The parent will look in the instruction manual, choose the one that would be the correct result, and then basically answer correct or incorrect into the Vic. At the end of it all, you enter in all the different quotients from each test and get your final score and your IQ. It looks like I'm a pretty smart 11-year-old, huh? Even though the personality test was a little disappointing, as far as I was kind of hoping that I would end up on that bent spectrum, but whatever. Maybe I'll try some of the other 2 tests in there. I just couldn't stomach another hour plus waiting for the cassette drives, the questions to load, etc. The IQ, yeah, interesting. It was interesting that it really required a parent to administer this stuff, because they would have to interpret answers on some of these things, and it wasn't just a self-guided thing. Next time we got a couple things that I want to explore more, particularly a bunch of different methods beyond the cassette on how to load programs. Using some piece of hardware that simulate a tape drive, using ones that simulate an actual disk drive. We'll actually take a look at a real disk drive, which will be kind of fun. I don't know if this thing works. We'll have to find out when we plug it in and see if we can get it functioning. But that'll be fun. Got some floppies lying around, so look forward to doing that. If you like what you saw here, please don't forget to like and subscribe. That will be great. Lets me know how many people are actually watching. Put any comments you want in the video too. Hoping to make it a little bit more interactive as we go forward. Really excited about the next episode, and really can't wait to get started on this next part. So see you again soon. So before I forget, I did end up printing out a special label for that messed up paint job. Figured might as well make that error my own. And then did discover what that mysterious black cartridge was that I had before. It's actually that NBA Tour software that I was looking at earlier. Another mystery solved.